There comes a moment when the mirror no longer reflects potential, but prophecy. The lines on your face are not cracks of decay. They are maps, etchings of battles survived, love poured out, and years carried like sacred oil. The applause that once lifted your name no longer echoes. Instead there is silence, not empty, but thick, holy. You feel it, though you haven't spoken it. The shift, a subtle tremor behind the eyes, in the bones. Carbon groans under the pressure of what it cannot hold. Density was necessary once, weight gave you roots. But now that same weight keeps you bound to identities you've outgrown. You are not dying. You are being refined. The world will say it's exhaustion, midlife, irrelevance. But your spirit knows you are in transition. You are no longer who you were. You are no longer allowed to be. The old frequency can't carry the new assignment. The body wants to hide. The soul begins to glow. You were formed in carbon, pressed by time, molded by expectations. But now, heaven is turning up the pressure, not to crush you, but to clarify you. The cracking you feel? It's not collapse. It's crystallization. The flesh is being shattered to reveal the flame. The density is being undone so that the light can pass through unfiltered. This is not burnout, it's becoming. No one claps for a rock when it turns to diamond. The process happens underground, in silence, in darkness. And so has yours. But now the light hits you differently. The same words that once slid off your back now pierce. The same noise that once entertained now nauseates. You are outgrowing the gravity of the old world. You are starting to remember you were not made to crawl. Crystalline beings are never at home in carbon crowds. And maybe that's why the circle shrunk, why your phone is quieter, why God's voice feels louder. You are not failing. You are being pulled through dimensions, transformed into precision. And if you recognize yourself in these words and still choose not to subscribe, then enter the comments and explain why you resist your own unveiling. You are not too far gone. You are not too old. You are not too late. The delay was divine. The detour was deliberate. Heaven didn't misplace you. It preserved you. The world measured you by speed, by spotlight, by scale. But the kingdom moves by weight, by hiddenness, by fire. You thought your setbacks disqualified you. But what if they were prerequisites? What if the pain you hid became the altar he chose? You are not broken beyond use. You are broken into shape. You are not lost. You were led into the wilderness so the noise of man would die and the voice of God could rise. You are not abandoned. You were pulled from the crowd because you were never called to blend in. You are chosen, royal, radiant, fire in flesh. Stone turned to sapphire. Unseen maybe, but never unfelt by heaven. The transition you're in, it isn't a collapse. It's a coronation. Carbon cannot carry crowns, only crystal can. What felt like being forgotten was you being set apart. For such a time, for such a wait, for such a shaking. You are not waiting for your moment. This is the moment. And it will not wait for your insecurity to shrink. It will not pause for your self-doubt to calm down. It will not ask permission from your fear. You were chosen before the applause, before the fall, before the wound. God saw the weakness and called it a window. He saw the flaw and called it a flame. You are not disposable. You are not invisible. You are not average. You are a gate, a signal, a sound. You are divine evidence that he still speaks through clay. And if you hear your name in this, if your spirit is shaking right now, then why haven't you subscribed? Why are you still standing at the edge of your own assignment? And if you're not stirred, if you think this isn't about you, then enter the comments and tell us, why are you still hiding behind the identity God already burned? You didn't lose your fire. You traded it, not all at once, not in some dramatic fall, but slowly, silently, in ways that looked wise, noble, responsible. You exchanged presence for performance, anointing for applause, calling for comfort. It felt like survival, but heaven saw surrender, not the kind that saves, the kind that sells. You started managing your image more than your oil. You began to ask, how will this look? Instead of, is this holy? And somewhere in the subtle shuffle, you forgot, Comfort is not your calling. It never was. The cross was not padded. The upper room was not popular, and the wilderness was not optional. But we built routines around what numbs. We let comparison disguise itself as diligence. We watched others run and called our stillness laziness. We mistook their noise for confirmation. We assumed their movement meant progress, and so we joined the race. Not the race marked out for us, but the one that kept us tired, visible, and spiritually hollow. You called it doing your best. But deep down, it was proving, performing, trying not to look like you were behind. But who told you were behind? Whose voice have you been editing yourself for? You're not late. You're out of alignment. The noise drowned out the instructions, the stage blurred your coordinates, and then you got busy. Not fruitful, just full. Your calendar became your comfort blanket. Every yes felt noble. Every obligation became a badge. But busyness is not a spiritual gift. And the devil doesn't always tempt you with sin. Sometimes he distracts you with service. You don't need to be evil to be ineffective. You just need to be occupied. Then came the quiet compromise, the people-pleasing, the way you shrunk truth just enough to keep them close. You called it peace. But peace that cost your purity isn't peace. It's passivity. You said, I just don't want to hurt anyone. But you forgot that silence hurts heaven. You stopped roaring, started whispering, and now you wonder why you feel spiritually mute. You can't carry a prophetic mantle and crave popular affirmation. One will crush the other, and in the background of it all, the screen never turned off. The scrolling became scripture. The glow replaced glory. You weren't backsliding, you were being numbed, not instantly, just enough to mute your urgency. You began to crave clarity from a culture God already told you to come out from. And perhaps worst of all, you forgot that this transition is holy. You started to treat it like a breakdown instead of a birthing. You stopped treating the ache as sacred. You looked at your confusion like failure instead of formation. So now the enemy doesn't have to steal your fire. You're extinguishing it yourself. You're trading consecration for commentary, revelation for reputation, fire for followers. But conviction without action? That's not discomfort. That's rebellion. You've heard the voice, you've felt the pull, and still you stay silent, unmoved. So, subscribe. Or drop a comment about why staying asleep feels safer than surrender. You've been weathered, yes, but not worn out. This is not erosion, it's evidence of survival, of obedience, of fire that refuses to flicker. You think the bruises disqualify you, but in the kingdom, bruises qualify you. You think your silence has made you irrelevant, but your silence has made you dangerous, because now when you speak, you carry weight. You don't tremble at shallow trends. You've buried too many idols to be seduced by the next one. You've seen too much to be shaken by surface. You're not new, you're proven. You don't need to shout to be heard, you just need to speak. And when you do, hell listens. The world may discard the seasoned, but heaven crowns them. Moses didn't get his fire at 40, he got it at 80. When his ego was gone, when the palace was distant, when the applause had died. It was in the desert, not the temple, that fire met his name. That's when heaven said, now you're ready to burn. Anna didn't preach to crowds. She fasted in silence for decades, forgotten by men, but the first to see the Messiah with her own eyes. Not because of performance, but because of purity. Paul didn't write his greatest letters while planting churches. He wrote them in prison, when no crowd was cheering, when no platform remained, when all that was left was obedience. That's when his voice found its sharpest edge. That's when the word flowed with fire, because the man was stripped and only the word remained. You think your fire is fading? This is when it burns cleanest, when ambition dies, when ego is gone, when you no longer crave visibility, only voice. This is not retirement, it is refinement. You are too seasoned for shallow impact, too marked to stay muted, too scarred to stay small. You didn't survive that storm to now play safe. You didn't walk through fire just to keep your mouth shut. You didn't bury that many versions of yourself just to become decorative in the kingdom. You were meant to thunder, to carry weight, to remind the earth that holiness is still a language. And fire is still available. The spiritual weight you carry isn't random, it's a weapon. But it won't be activated by silence. You have to speak, even if your voice shakes, even if your circle shrinks, even if the algorithm buries you. Because heaven is not counting your views, it's measuring your volume, not in decibels, but in depth. And if you're still doubting that you're called to this, then remember, the enemy never attacks the irrelevant. He attacks what's becoming dangerous. So, you've come too far to stay voiceless, subscribe, or step into the comments and confess. What lie are you still clinging to that keeps you hiding when God has already called you out? It is a holy thing to be misunderstood. Let them misread you. Let them call your silence arrogance. Let them twist your boundaries into bitterness. Because consecration has never been comfortable. The narrow path has always looked like rejection to the wide-eyed crowd. But you weren't called to be available. You were called to be anointed. And anointing leaks when you're always accessible, when your yes is cheap, when your time is on discount, when your peace is for sale. You are not required to explain your obedience to anyone. When God told Noah to build, he didn't tell him to convince the people why. When Elijah went into the cave, it wasn't because he lost his faith, it was because he needed space to hear the whisper. There are some words you only hear in isolation. There are some flames that can't burn unless the room is emptied. Shrink your circle, raise your standard. The wider your gate, the weaker your wall. You don't need more people, you need more purity. You don't need another dinner invitation. You need a secret place. Holiness doesn't scream, it withdraws. Obedience doesn't broadcast, it builds in silence. The sacred doesn't advertise, it separates. Let your no be sacred. You are not rude for protecting your peace. You are not arrogant for guarding your oil. You are not mean for keeping your mouth shut when gossip knocks on your door. You weren't built for performance, you were crafted for presence. And the presence does not dwell in crowds. It descends on altars built in solitude. Ask yourself, how much oil have you lost trying to prove you're still likable? How many divine downloads did you miss because you stayed too long on that call? How many sacred moments were clogged by unholy conversations? Your boundaries aren't rejection. They are protection. They are intercession. They are spiritual maintenance. Some doors need to stay locked. Some texts don't need replies. Some rooms can't handle your oil. And it's not your job to pour until they understand. Let them call you cold. God calls you consecrated. Let them say you've changed. Tell them yes, you have, and it was on purpose. Every yes to them is a no to him. Every forced conversation is stolen oil. Every people-pleasing compromise is a crack in your flask. This season requires less noise, more stillness, fewer friends, deeper altars. You cannot carry sacred fire and casual connections in the same breath. You cannot walk in authority and addiction to approval at the same time. You cannot stand in the Holy of Holies and still ask the crowd if they're comfortable with your silence. Because silence, when God calls for it, is obedience. When you turn down the volume of the world, you turn up the clarity of heaven. You are not hiding, you are healing. You are not avoiding, you are aligning. Your presence is not public property. Your peace is not for negotiation. Let your consecration offend. Let your obedience be misunderstood. Let your silence echo louder than explanation ever could. You have nothing to prove, only oil to protect. So here it is. Your yes to everyone is costing you oil. Subscribe if you're ready to guard it. Otherwise, drop into the comments and confess the real issue, your addiction to approval. There is a sound your life is making, whether you speak or not. Every yes you whisper in secret echoes in the halls of eternity. Every no you've wept through shakes the corridors of hell. You think you're just surviving, but heaven calls it seed sowing. You are raising altars your grandchildren will stand on. You are silencing demons your children will never have to fight. You are building a path with your pain, and one day someone with your last name will walk it in peace because you didn't quit. This is not about now. This is about next. This is not about how loud you can preach. This is about how well your life preaches when no one's looking. Your boundaries, their sermons, your silence. It's a declaration. Your refusal to settle. It's training the next generation in war strategy. Because they are watching, they are listening, and they are learning, not from your perfection, but from your posture. When you walk away from what once fed your flesh, they learn discipline. When you choose the secret place over the spotlight, they learn intimacy. When you say no to what's popular and yes to what's holy, they learn what it means to burn clean. You're not just breaking cycles, you are writing blueprints. You are not just enduring this season, you are etching commandments into generational memory. Don't you see? Every boundary you hold becomes a boundary they inherit. Every idol you crush becomes a god they'll never bow to. Every altar you build in obedience becomes a throne where God meets your bloodline. Your private victories will become their public freedom. Your self-control will be their spiritual inheritance. Your hidden prayers will become their visible protection. What they see you deny teaches them what to value. What they see you walk away from teaches them what to stand for. You are preaching legacy with your discipline. You are writing eternity with your decisions. You are building an ark, not just for you, but for those who come after you. You may never see the full harvest of the seeds you're planting, but one day, someone with your DNA will rise with fire in their bones and oil in their flask and favor on their path. Because you stayed faithful when no one clapped. This is legacy. Not likes, not applause. Legacy is quiet. Legacy is gritty. Legacy is holy. So ask yourself, what are you handing off? What are you passing down? What are you leaving behind? Is it oil or offense? Is it obedience or excuses? Is it conviction or compromise? Because every decision is inheritance. And the scariest thing you can do is pass down chains you were called to break. If legacy matters, so does alignment. Subscribe and settle it now. Or step into the comments and tell us, why should your future bloodline inherit your excuses? You are not fading, you are becoming flame. They told you your season was over, that the fire was in your youth, that wisdom dims the spark. But heaven never asked for your age, heaven asked for your yielding. Because embers that survive the wilderness burn hotter than fresh flame. You've endured too much to cool now. You've walked through deserts that melted the plastic off your faith. You've bled prayers that rewrote your DNA. You've buried pieces of yourself in obedience, and you think you're weaker for it. But really, you are more combustible than you've ever been. This is not decline. This is ignition. This is the convergence of every wilderness, every yes, every tear, every silence, every wound. You are not a fading echo. You are the beginning of thunder. This is your roar season. Roar until demons tremble. Roar until your ceiling cracks open with glory. Roar until every lie about being too late or too broken bows its face in shame before the throne of the Lamb. Because this is war, not against flesh, not against your past, not against the ones who never saw you. This is war for the unseen, for the unborn, for the one sitting in the back row of their life wondering if God still speaks. He does, and He's using your mouth to prove it. You are the edge, the line, the final breath between heaven's invasion and hell's defeat. You are not waiting for revival. You are the revival. You are the pulse of the last days, the wind through the dry bones, the trumpet in Zion. You don't need a stage. You don't need a crowd. You need a made-up mind and a consecrated yes. Heaven is not calling for influencers. Heaven is calling for intercessors, for the crystalline ones, the ones who walk invisible but strike eternal, the ones who bleed in secret and bind wounds in silence, the ones who pierce the heavens without a sound, the ones who punch holes in the sky. Their prayers don't echo, they invade. Their silence is not absence, it is alignment. And their consecration is not weakness, it is warfare. You've been wondering why you're still here, still breathing, still waking up when quitting felt easier. It's because God preserved you for fire, not applause, not platform. Fire. You've heard the trumpet. Your spirit knows it. There's an ache in your bones that no sermon can silence. It's the call of the last days. You've been marked. branded by intercession, cut by obedience, and commissioned for combustion. So this is your final charge. Roar until your final breath. Don't wait for validation. You are already verified in the Spirit. Don't beg to be seen. Heaven already knows your name. Don't ask for ease. Ask for fire. Ask for boldness. Ask for the mantle of the last watchman. The earth is groaning. The heavens are leaning. The Spirit is stirring. And the time is now. No more delay. No more shrinking. No more praying safe prayers and hiding behind polite faith. You are not the shadow. You are the signal. You are not the memory. You are the mandate. You are what hell fears in the middle of the night. You are what heaven sends when it wants to invade. You are what history will whisper about when books have closed. So, respond. Subscribe to Pope Leo XIV Unveiled, because this isn't content, this is consecration. This is not entertainment, this is enlistment. And if you're still hesitating, drop into the comments. Let the crystalline ones read your resistance. Let them intercede. Let them pray it breaks. Because ready or not, you've been drafted into the flame.